The name Carlo Gambino evokes mystery, power, and a golden era of organized crime in the United States. Known as the boss of bosses, Gambino was one of the most influential mobsters of the 20th century, leading New York's most powerful crime family with cunning, discretion, and a unique ability to avoid unwanted attention from authorities. Born in Sicily, the land of vendettas and the Cosa Nostra's code of honor, Carlo learned the rules of the game early on. The mafia culture was deeply rooted in his family, and upon arriving in the United States in the 1920s, he quickly found himself entangled in the intricate workings of the criminal underworld. His rise was swift, driven by strategic alliances, betrayals, and a singular talent for always staying one step ahead of both his enemies and the law. The Prohibition era played a crucial role in shaping his trajectory. During this time of great opportunity for organized criminals, Gambino found in alcohol smuggling a way to grow and solidify his position within the mafia. He took part in the bloody Castellammarese War, an internal conflict that redefined the structure of the Cosa Nostra in the United States. By the war's end, Gambino had emerged as one of the organization's key figures, allied with legendary names like Lucky Luciano and Vito Genovese. Unlike other mobsters who craved the spotlight and led extravagant lives, Gambino preferred discretion. He believed that true power lay in silence, and this philosophy helped him stay at the top for decades. Under his leadership, the Gambino family expanded its operations, dominating illegal gambling, extortion, underground casinos, and even exerting influence over labor unions. But it was not all glory. The mafia was under constant scrutiny by the FBI, and the 1960s brought a new wave of investigations and prosecutions against top crime bosses. Despite this, Carlo managed to avoid prison throughout his life, a rare feat in the world of organized crime. His end did not come at the hands of a rival or through a federal operation, but from natural causes in 1976, leaving behind a legacy that would shape the American Mafia for generations. In this video, we will explore every detail of Carlo Gambino's life: his childhood in Sicily, his arrival in the United States, his early involvement in crime, his rise as one of the greatest mafia bosses, and the events that led to his absolute reign over the Cosa Nostra. We will also analyze how he managed to stay on top for so long and the impact he left on the modern mafia. The journey of the boss of bosses begins now. Sicily at the beginning of the 20th century was a landscape shaped by poverty, the oppression of landowners, and the ruthless presence of the Cosa Nostra. It was into this hostile environment that Carlo Gambino was born on the 24th of August, 1902, in the small town of Capone. From an early age, young Carlo was exposed to the world of crime, where respect and fear went hand in hand. The Gambino family already had deep ties to the local mafia. His uncle, Giuseppe Don Peppino Gambino, was a respected capo, known both for his generosity and for his brutality when necessary. Under Don Peppino's tutelage, Carlo learned the code of omertà, absolute silence, and developed an early understanding of the unwritten rules of the Sicilian mafia. Still a teenager, Carlo began getting involved in small criminal schemes. His first job was as a collector for his uncle, visiting local merchants and ensuring they paid for the protection offered by the mafia. He quickly demonstrated a unique ability to resolve complicated situations without resorting to violence, earning the trust of the older mobsters. World War I brought more misery to Sicily, but it also strengthened the mafia's position. While the Italian government fought on the front lines, the Cosa Nostra took control of villages and towns, offering security and sustenance to those in need. Carlo saw firsthand how power could be obtained, not only through force, but also by manipulating people's needs. With the end of the war, Italy plunged into an economic and political crisis. Many Sicilians decided to seek a better life in America, including members of the Gambino family. At 19 years old, Carlo Gambino disembarked at the port of New York, carrying with him more than just a suitcase. He brought the legacy of the Sicilian Cosa Nostra and an unshakable determination to become a powerful figure in the New World. The 1920s were an era of opportunities, but also of dangers. New York was a city teeming with immigrants and mafias, each trying to carve out its own space. Gambino quickly integrated into the Sicilian community of Brooklyn. Using family connections and old contacts from Sicily, he began working for Salvatore Toto d'Aquila, one of the most influential mafia bosses of the time. His intelligence and discretion caught the attention not only of d'Aquila, but also of Vincent Mangano, with whom he would form a crucial alliance. His rise was built on a foundation of patience and strategy. Carlo preferred to avoid the use of violence when possible, opting for negotiations and bribes to resolve disputes. However, when force was necessary, he did not hesitate to act, but always in a calculated manner, leaving no traces. His ability to navigate the criminal underworld earned him respect quickly, making him one of the main lieutenants of the Mangano family. During this time, Gambino realized that the key to power was not only in controlling the streets, but also in influencing unions and legitimate businesses. He began building alliances with local politicians and union bosses, which would later prove essential to his dominance over New York. The Prohibition Act, enacted in 1920 by the 18th Amendment to the United States Constitution, was a gift to organized crime. By banning the manufacture, sale, and transportation of alcoholic beverages, the government inadvertently created a highly lucrative black market. For Carlo Gambino and other mobsters, this was a goldmine waiting to be exploited. Gambino quickly became involved in liquor smuggling. Using his network of Sicilian contacts and new alliances in the United States, he helped establish smuggling routes that stretched from Canada to New York. Ships loaded with Scotch whiskey, Caribbean rum, and European wines arrived at clandestine ports, and Gambino, with his logistical prowess, ensured that every bottle reached the city's speakeasies and underground bars. His approach was different from many of his contemporaries. While other mafia families engaged in gang wars to control the market, Carlo preferred to negotiate. He understood that excessive violence attracted unwanted attention. Thus, while the streets of Chicago and Detroit were stained with blood, New York, under Gambino's influence, quietly prospered. In addition to alcohol, Gambino diversified his ventures. He entered the business of underground gambling houses, extortion, and high-interest loan sharking. With money flowing in, he began investing in legitimate businesses, creating a facade of respectability that would protect him from future investigations. When Prohibition was repealed in 1933, many mobsters suffered a devastating financial blow, but Carlo Gambino was prepared. He had already diversified his sources of income and quickly adapted to the new reality. Unlike many of his rivals, the end of Prohibition did not mark the end of his empire, but rather the beginning of a new phase of expansion and consolidation of his power. With a sharp business mind and a strategic approach, Carlo Gambino turned the Prohibition years into a springboard to become one of the most powerful figures in the American Mafia. His ability to balance the legal and the illegal, the discreet and the dangerous, cemented his position as a true boss of bosses. The Castellammarese War, fought between 1929 and 1931, was one of the bloodiest and most transformative periods in the history of organized crime in the United States. This internal war within the New York Mafia pitted two powerful factions against each other: the group led by Giuseppe, Joe the Boss, Masseria, and the rival faction commanded by Salvatore Maranzano. Carlo Gambino, still on the rise, saw in this war a golden opportunity to solidify his path to power. The war began as a result of disputes over control of criminal operations in New York, especially the lucrative illegal alcohol trade during Prohibition. Joe Masseria, a Sicilian immigrant with a tyrannical approach, demanded tributes from other mafia families and tolerated no dissent. Salvatore Maranzano, also Sicilian, sought to overthrow Masseria, promising a new order within the Cosa Nostra based on the traditional values of the Sicilian Mafia. Tension between the two factions quickly escalated. Hired assassins on both sides began eliminating rivals in broad daylight. Restaurants, bars, and even family homes became scenes of shootings and executions. Chaos took over the streets of New York, and fear spread among both mobsters and ordinary citizens. It is estimated that over 60 men were killed during the Castellammarese War. Some of the most notorious deaths included Alfred Mineo and Steve Ferrino, important allies of Masseria, who were ambushed and executed on a Bronx street. Others were killed in attacks on speakeasies and carefully planned ambushes. Carlo Gambino, always calculating, chose to remain neutral for most of the conflict. He knew that picking a side too early could be fatal. Instead, he worked behind the scenes, staying in contact with both Luciano and members of both factions. His strategy was clear: wait for the right moment to act and ensure that, regardless of who won, he would come out ahead. The turning point occurred on the 15th of April, 1931, when Joe Masseria was assassinated while having lunch at Nuova Villa Tamaro, a restaurant in the Coney Island neighborhood. The ambush was orchestrated by Charles Lucky Luciano, who, despite being an ally of Masseria, had made a secret deal with Salvatore Maranzano. Carlo Gambino assisted by providing logistical information, ensuring the assassins had a safe escape route. With Masseria's death, Maranzano declared himself Capo di tutti capi, boss of all bosses. However, his reign was short-lived. Just 5 months later, Maranzano was also assassinated, this time on Luciano's orders, who saw the title of absolute boss as a threat to the stability of the mafia. Carlo Gambino, always at Luciano's side, supported the decision and helped orchestrate the final blow. After the war, Luciano and Gambino created the Commission, a sort of council that brought together the leaders of the 5 major New York mafia families: Gambino, Genovese, Lucchese, Colombo, and Bonanno. This structure brought relative peace to the criminal underworld, avoiding internal disputes and ensuring that the families worked together on profitable criminal activities. Gambino, now a central figure on the commission, used his position to expand his businesses and reinforce his power. He knew that excessive violence had led to the downfall of Masseria and Maranzano, so he opted for a more subtle approach. Bribery, political manipulation, and control of labor unions became his main tools. The Castellammarese War not only shaped the future of organized crime, but was also the catalyst that propelled Carlo Gambino to the top. His ability to remain neutral until the right moment, his alliance with Luciano, and his understanding of the need for a more organized and discreet mafia made him one of the greatest mob bosses in history. With mafia leadership stabilized and a more democratic system for resolving disputes, criminal families focused their efforts on expanding illicit businesses and consolidating their influence across various sectors of American society. Carlo Gambino, always strategic, used this period to strengthen his position and diversify his activities. He expanded control over labor unions, especially in the construction and transportation sectors, which gave him access to valuable public and private contracts. Through bribes and intimidation, he ensured that his interests were always prioritized, earning millions in profits. Additionally, Gambino invested in illegal gambling, establishing underground betting networks that stretched across the country. His ability to avoid direct confrontations and maintain a low profile allowed the mafia to thrive without drawing attention from authorities. He understood that the key to success was making money without attracting trouble, and this philosophy guided him throughout the golden years of organized crime. During this phase, Gambino reinforced his image as a sensible and calculating leader. While other mafia families faced investigations and scandals, he maintained a discreet profile. His philosophy of avoiding the spotlight and focusing on business became a mantra within the organization, ensuring stability and prosperity. Over the years, Carlo Gambino used the commission not only to expand his empire, but also to shape the future of the mafia. Under his influence, organized crime became more structured, less violent in public, and far more profitable. This transformation solidified his position as the boss of bosses and laid the foundation for his absolute dominance in the years to come. At the height of his power, Carlo Gambino expanded his operations far beyond traditional mafia activities such as smuggling and union control. He delved deeply into the world of illegal gambling and extortion, areas that proved extremely lucrative and less risky than drug trafficking, a territory he always approached with caution. Carlo Gambino's ability to create and manage a vast network of illegal gambling operations was remarkable. Underground casinos, sports betting, and private card games flourished under his command. He established partnerships with social clubs and bars in New York, turning them into discreet and highly profitable betting centers. The Mafia charged a protection fee to the owners of these establishments, ensuring that no competitors or even the police would interfere with their businesses. If anyone tried to operate without Gambino's permission, the consequences were severe. However, Carlo always preferred negotiation over violence, using his vast system of bribes to keep the operation under control and away from the authorities' eyes. Unlike many mob bosses who fell due to excessive exposure, Carlo Gambino always kept his operations discreet. He understood that true power came from silence. His enforcers were instructed not to flaunt their wealth. Money was often laundered through legitimate businesses, and large sums were invested in real estate and financial ventures. This way, even if the authorities began investigating, they rarely found concrete evidence to incriminate him. Gambino was a master in the art of diplomacy. While other mobsters quickly resorted to violence, he preferred to sit at the table and negotiate. His ability to hold frank yet discreet conversations allowed him to establish a network of alliances that extended beyond the borders of New York. Among the New York families, Gambino maintained respectful relations with the Genovese, Lucchese, Colombo, and Bonanno families. He often acted as a mediator in internal disputes, using the commission as a platform to resolve conflicts without bloodshed. This approach elevated him to the status of boss of bosses, someone whose opinion was always taken into account. Beyond American borders, Carlo cultivated ties with the Sicilian Mafia, the Neapolitan Camorra, and even criminal organizations in Latin America. His influence allowed businesses such as drug trafficking and smuggling to be operated in a coordinated and efficient manner, maximizing profits and minimizing risks. The 1960s brought major changes to organized crime in the United States. With the arrest of Charles Lucky Luciano and his deportation to Italy, a power vacuum was created. Carlo Gambino, always opportunistic, saw this shift as a chance to expand his empire and further strengthen his position within the Cosa Nostra. With Luciano out of the game, many expected an internal struggle for control of the mafia. However, Gambino used his diplomatic skills to ensure a smooth transition. He worked discreetly to gain the support of the other mafia families and reinforced his role as the commission's mediator. During this period, Gambino took over several operations previously managed by Luciano. He expanded his influence in labor unions and reinforced his control over illegal gambling and extortion. His always discreet approach ensured that he remained off the radar of the authorities, unlike other more extravagant mob bosses. With his power consolidated, Gambino further diversified his businesses. He invested in legitimate companies, creating a respectable facade. His crime family began operating in various sectors, including construction, transportation, and even real estate. At the same time, Carlo continued his illegal operations. He expanded control over the unions, ensuring that public and private contracts always went through his hands. The money from extortion and illegal gambling was laundered through his legitimate businesses, creating an economic cycle virtually untouchable by the authorities. Despite his diplomatic approach, the 1960s were not entirely peaceful. There were attempts at betrayal within the Gambino family itself. Joseph Biondo, who served as underboss, began to show dangerous ambitions. However, Carlo, always one step ahead, replaced Biondo with Paul Castellano, a move that secured his position and eliminated potential threats. When dealing with rivals, Gambino maintained his characteristic method, first offering a peaceful way out, but always being prepared for a more definitive response. This stance ensured that, even in times of tension, he remained in absolute control. During the 1970s, the tide began to turn against organized crime in the United States. The federal administration under J. Edgar Hoover and, subsequently, a new generation of agents intensified efforts to dismantle the mafia. Carlo Gambino, despite all his discretion and ability to stay off the radar, became a priority target. The Siege of the Mafia, one of the FBI's main offensives against the Cosa Nostra, was Operation Tentacles. This operation aimed to map the complex network of legal and illegal businesses of the New York Mafia families. Through wiretaps, infiltration by secret agents, and collaboration with informants, the FBI began to gather evidence against important mafia leaders, including Gambino. The difficulty, however, was directly connecting Carlo to the crimes. His strategy of keeping himself distant from day-to-day operations and using intermediaries paid dividends. Even with several operations being dismantled, Gambino's name rarely appeared in testimonies. Many of his subordinates preferred prison rather than betraying the boss of bosses. In 1970, Congress passed the RICO, Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. Law, a powerful tool against organized crime. This legislation allowed prosecutors to prosecute mafia leaders not only for the crimes they directly committed, but also for any criminal activity carried out by members of their organization under their orders. For Carlo Gambino, the approval of the RICO Act represented an unprecedented threat. Now, he could be held responsible for the crimes of his henchmen, even without ever having directly participated in them. The FBI intensified its efforts, trying to gather enough evidence to prosecute him under this new legislation. While Carlo kept himself away from bars, many of his allies were not so lucky. Paul Castellano, his right-hand man and chosen successor, began to face intense investigations. Other important figures of the Gambino family were also arrested, weakening the organization. Furthermore, the FBI managed to turn some minor mobsters into informants. These collaborators provided valuable information, revealing details of mafia operations, meeting routines, and even names of important members. However, Carlo always kept his inner circle extremely loyal, which made any direct evidence against him difficult. In the 1970s, in addition to legal pressure, Carlo Gambino began to suffer from health problems. He had a debilitating heart condition, and his advanced age limited his public appearances. Even so, he continued to command his organization with a firm hand, often from his own home in Brooklyn. The FBI, aware of his fragility, tried to use this situation to their advantage. They offered deals to members of the Gambino family, promising reduced sentences in exchange for information about the boss. Although some yielded, none provided concrete evidence that could bring Carlo to court. Carlo Gambino's main defense was always silence. He instructed his subordinates never to discuss business over the phone and to avoid meetings in public places. Even when summoned to testify, he rarely provided more than evasive and polite answers. His ability to navigate the FBI's encirclement became legendary. While other mob bosses were arrested or deported, Gambino remained free. His strategy was not only to avoid prison, but also to ensure that his empire survived, even in times of intense persecution. Aware of his precarious health, Carlo began to prepare the ground for his succession. He named Paul Castellano, his cousin and trusted man, as his successor. This choice, however, was not unanimous within the family. Many expected Agnello della Croce, one of Gambino's top lieutenants, to take control. To avoid internal disputes, Gambino established an agreement. Castellano would handle the business operations and the more public aspects of the organization, while della Croce would maintain control of street operations and drug trafficking. This temporary division brought peace, but also planted the seeds for future conflicts after his death. While Carlo was preparing for his exit, the FBI intensified its operations. Even without sufficient evidence to arrest him, authorities dismantled several Gambino family operations. Illegal casinos were shut down, unions were placed under federal supervision, and several mobsters were arrested. The external pressure forced Carlo to reduce his activities, but he never gave in. Until the last moment, he maintained his code of silence and his calculating demeanor. When summoned to testify, he used his debilitating health as an excuse, escaping hearings and avoiding court. On the 15th of October, 1976, Carlo Gambino passed away at his home in Brooklyn, a victim of a heart attack. His death marked the end of an era in the American Mafia, where discretion, intelligence, and patience prevailed over violence and exhibitionism. His funeral was a discreet event, reflecting his own life. Despite being one of the most powerful men in the underworld, only close family and a few loyal members of the Gambino family attended. The streets were not closed. There was no parade of luxury cars or public displays of power. Even in death, Carlo Gambino maintained his code of silence and discretion. Even after his death, the lessons left by Carlo Gambino continued to echo in the criminal underworld. His strategic approach and his preference for diplomacy over unnecessary violence served as a model for future generations of mobsters. Many consider that his legacy helped the Mafia survive the intense federal investigations in the following decades. The Mafia Commission, created with Gambino's support, continued to operate, adapting to new times. Although organized crime has changed, Carlo Gambino's principles, discretion, influence, and control remained rooted in the culture of the Cosa Nostra. Carlo Gambino's story is not just that of a criminal, but of a strategist, a leader, and a legend. His name will continue to be remembered as the boss of bosses, a figure who defined an era and left an eternal legacy in modern mafia. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and give it a like. This helps a lot to continue bringing more videos like this. See you next time.